Plants in the genus Capsicum produce the secondary compound capsaicin. There are many hypotheses as to the evolutionary benefits of capsaicin, including that it is antimicrobial, anti-insect, and anti-mammalian frugivore and anti-mammalian browsing. One thing that we know for sure is that capsaicin binds to stretch receptors in animal cells, leading to the sensation of pain. This painful sensation has led to the most prominent hypothesis for the evolution of capsaicin, that it evolved to deter mammals who might chew and grind up the seeds, but attract birds who would eat the fruits whole and pass the seeds, effectively dispersing them. And so, regardless of how it benefits the plant, the sensation of pain has led to artificial selection for increased capsaicin in varietals such as this Carolina Reaper. For the past several years, my students and I have been exploring the potential evolutionary benefits of capsaicin. Our goal is to look at every aspect of the life history of pepper plants and examine the potential costs and benefits of capsaicin. With respect to microbes, my students found that yeast actually benefits from the presence of capsaicin. The more capsaicin there is, the higher the growth rate of the yeast. This work was presented in 2016 to the Missouri Academy of Sciences. As far as bacteria, we have tried many times and in many conditions, and we can find no situation in which capsaicin inhibits the growth of bacteria. We have, however, noticed that the more capsaicin there is, the more Serratia marcescens shows up, so it's possible that there could be some sort of selective recruitment of certain types of bacteria. Regardless, we have no evidence that the benefit of capsaicin comes from its antimicrobial properties. Regardless of its effects on microbes, it's possible that capsaicin could benefit these plants somehow through the process of germination. But this past winter, my students found that for cultivated species, the more capsaicin there is, the longer it takes to germinate. However, for wild species, the amount of capsaicin present did not influence the number of days until germination. And in terms of germination rate, the pattern was the same for domesticated and wild species. The more capsaicin there is, the lower the germination rate. So we can safely say that capsaicin does not benefit capsicum peppers in terms of germination. Regardless of capsaicin's effects on germination, it's possible that it helps the plant through plant growth or growth rate. This past winter, my students found that for cultivated species, the highest plant growth rates were associated with species with less capsaicin, and for wild species, the highest growth rates were associated with intermediate capsaicin levels. So from these results, we can see clearly that capsaicin does not increase the growth rate of capsicum peppers. And as we move into the next life history stage, it's possible that capsaicin benefits these plants by deterring browsers, that is to say, animals like deer that might come and eat the foliage of the plant before the plant has a chance to produce fruits and seeds. In our first experiment, we found that the only plants that avoided being browsed on by deer were those that were low and shrubby. Consequently, those were the only plants that fruited and the only plants that had fruit removal. So now we have a potential benefit. If capsaicin slows the growth rate of a plant, that might make it smaller and less likely to be browsed on, which might make it more likely to survive and produce fruit. The last browsing experiment was done right before COVID, so we were a little bit harried. We are currently redoing the experiment with 72 plants of different levels of capsaicin. We have the plants organized into random blocks along a tract of forest where we know deer frequently visit, and we're just waiting for the deer to come and eat our plants. And so now we come to the most prominent hypothesis that capsaicin evolved to deter mammalian frugivores while attracting birds, because mammals have teeth that will destroy the seeds, birds don't have teeth, so birds will eat the fruits and disperse the seeds. A key tenet of this hypothesis is that birds have a poor sense of taste. To test this, my students treated sunflower seeds with varying levels of capsaicin and then monitored bird feeders to see how often the birds came to the feeder. Contrary to their expectations, they found that the more capsaicin they added, the less frequently birds would visit, especially cardinals and chickadees. So it appeared that these birds could taste capsaicin and they didn't like it. My students presented this work at the 2017 NCUR conference in Memphis. The next summer, they did a follow-up project where they offered squirrels and birds the choice between eating untreated sunflower seeds and seeds that had been treated with various levels of capsaicin. For squirrels, they preferred untreated seeds to any level of capsaicin treatment. So even just the slightest amount of capsaicin was enough for them to prefer untreated seeds. For birds, however, we have to go all the way to 1 million Scovilles, or the equivalent heat of a ghost pepper, before they discriminated between treated and untreated seeds. That is to say, for the hottest treatment, birds could taste the treatment and they preferred the untreated seeds. These results support the idea that capsaicin evolved to deter mammals, but at intermediate levels, because if you have too much capsaicin, then you deter even songbirds. There are two important caveats to this work. One is that we used sunflower seeds treated with capsaicin extract, and the other is that for squirrels, even though they showed initial preferences, once they ate all of the untreated seeds, they would go back and eat the treated seeds, even the ghost pepper treated seeds. We are currently conducting this experiment again, but using pepper seeds, actual pepper seeds, instead of sunflower seeds that have been treated with capsaicin. Our most recent research projects focus on what happens to pepper seeds as they move through the digestive system of birds that eat them. Animal digestive systems view capsaicin as a toxin, thus flushing it out with as much water as they can. The idea is that foods that have capsaicin move through a digestive system faster than those that don't have capsaicin. Thus, it's possible that capsicum peppers with capsaicin would move through a bird's digestive system faster and thus be less likely to be crushed by the gizzard. Our working hypothesis is that capsaicin could be beneficial to germination. This summer, we're adding pepper seeds to the bird feeder, placing cardboard under the feeder from which we can collect bird poop, and then in our preliminary analysis, we're taking bird poop, extracting DNA from it, and then using that DNA to identify what species of bird pooped it, and also using PCR to see if we can find evidence of capsicum peppers in the poop. And then next summer we'll move on to phase 2, which will actually be taking the poop and planting it to see what plants come up in general, and then what varieties of hot pepper come up specifically. And this has all been very fun and very interesting. But we have a long way to go. So far, it looks like we have some support for the traditional hypothesis that capsaicin benefits the plant by allowing birds to disperse seeds and preventing mammals from destroying the seeds. But we also have this unexpected finding where capsaicin may actually affect plant morphology, which leads to low shrubby plant structure, which decreases browsing rates. So more to come. Thank you.